Cool. So this is Has the Left Lost the Plot? You can see my name is not here, but that's Rob just has a habit of kidnapping people. Uh, so, you know, we've all grown up in the world where the left dominates everything. And it used to be the stuff they produced at least wasn't crap, but now it is. So let's just start off with each member of the panel saying which piece of lefty agitprop that they've seen recently was the worst thing they've seen in a while. Just going to start this being a conservative conference. Why don't we start with Morgan?
Okay. I
Ladies
actually,
first.
when Rob asked me to do this panel, I decided that I wanted to talk about Damsel, which was released by Netflix. I don't know if anyone has seen that one. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting because it didn't have much of a soul, and the way it was structured, if you've seen the movie, is like they explain everything to you in dialogue. Like they don't leave anything up for your interpretation in it. They're telling you what to think the entire movie, and I think that kind of sums up a lot of the problems with the media that's out now that the left is producing is they're telling you what to think. You can't even make your own decisions about a movie plot.
Right?
I would, so much Star Wars. Uh, where does one begin? I would say the biggest pile of steaming excrement that I've experienced was probably She-Hulk.
Oh.
Which is closely tied to the Rings of Power. Um, this all comes down to, I don't think Hollywood or people who write in general, be it novels or whatever, you have to know your audience. And you have to write for that audience. They begin their premise with, I will find this mythical modern audience, and that's who I'm going to write to. And I'm starting with an agenda, and I will write a movie around that agenda or that narrative. That's going to be how I script this. And every time they've done it, it fails miserably.
No? Unless you got some of Rob's chewables.
I haven't been on a panel yet, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Bill Willingham.
Oh, I thought you had.
right,
You just
right there.
you're omnipresent.
Uh, can I choose all of them? And what I mean by this is we were discussing this at our table, the cool table at lunch. We will be, there was one opening left, one seat left. We'll be taking applications for following meals, but discussing this at the table, that one of the aspects of the new trends, and I'll just use the film stuff. I mean, it's in books and everything else too, but is that it is, in order to have that perfect downtown LA mix of every race and creed and not creed, you can't believe certain things, but every type of person, you have to make it so generic. Not a single village in Rings of Power has a culture, if you'll notice when you watch it. There's not a single thing you could say, oh, this is the village where they do this, or they believe this, or they went through this. Any character from the Wheel of Time could pack up her things, walk over to Rings of Power, and settle right in, and no one would notice. As a matter of fact, except for the spaceships, you could do that from any of the Star Wars episodes right now. It is all one universal, I would not even say universal culture, because it's a non-culture. No one can have beliefs. No one can have anything but the color of their skin and the way they look on film, and that's it. And that's every one of the shows. That's Bridgerton. That's everything. right now they're going systematically through some of the books I love and destroying them. I mean, there's a new version of The Buccaneers, which I think was just a wonderful novel, and then they made a pretty good BBC, I think, miniseries out of it a while back. But now the newest version is just wretched. But any one of those could appear in any of those other villages, and they'd fit right in. There's a wonderful anecdote that I love during the time that the Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie was filming. At the same time, there was a Brian Brown made-for-TV BBC Robin Hood, and then there was a third Robin Hood production, all in Sherwood Forest, all at the same time. So, of course, all of the extras kept showing up to the wrong sets every day. After the confusion was dealt with, basically they worked out a system where, okay, we got these extras today, so we'll call up this production and trade, okay, keep that many of ours, et cetera. They worked it out. Well, that is every leftist show now. They could all visit each other's set and just pick up and carry on with whatever it is nonsense the script calls for that day, and not a single person would notice. End of rant.
I would throw in Snow White, which was such a horrific tragedy that they purged the dwarves, because you can't have dwarves because that's discriminatory, that's ableist, and so then it released clips that they initially denied, and then they came out, oh yeah, those are really, that's really images from our movie, and there were no dwarves. They were all like multicultural, generic liberal people following Snow White.
The Snow White and these 7 interesting people.
Not even interested.
Well,
No.
I'm using their language.
Yeah.
But yes.
And so then they got such pushback for that, and then of course the actress that they have playing Snow White hates the audience, which this is where I'd kind of like to see other people respond to this. Blaine, you said that your description is that they're sort of writing to what they think. I'm not sure I agree. I think what they're doing is they populate and seize territory and indoctrinate. So they pick the things that we love, what Bill just said. They pick things that we love, and they actively seek to destroy them. Not that they're going to try to find an audience. They know the audience. The audience for Star Wars is Star Wars fans. The audience for Lord of the Rings is Lord of the Rings fans. And they hate them. They hate them with an effing passion. And that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think they aren't trying to find an audience that doesn't exist. I think they do know the audience, and they want it not to exist. And that is the sum total of their purpose, is let's wreck it.
I honestly don't think they're that smart. I tried to time that, by the way, while you were sipping.
Blaine is evil, but he's on our side.
Yeah, mostly evil. Yeah, but I just don't think they're that bright. I think they literally believe, and I've seen this in written franchises, I've seen it in other things. They believe there's some sort of mythical audience out there that's gay, trans, les, multiracial, multicolor, whatever, and that's who they're writing for. And they don't care about it. They don't care about the fans. But then take a look at what happens. So, biggest box office hit of the year, Deadpool Wolverine. What did it do? It knew who its audience was. It gave the audience exactly what the audience wanted. The Spider-Man one with all 3 Spider-Men. No Way Home. Great movie. What did it do? It gave the fans exactly what they want. It knew who the audience was and went for it. I don't think they're actively destroying our stuff. They're just like a wave of locusts. They're out looking for whatever they can consume and repurpose for their mythical audience that they somehow believe is out there. And it never shows up. And we saw it with the Acolyte. It was great. They said, we don't want you watching the Acolyte. This isn't for you. We said, okay, we're not going to watch The Acolyte.
Racist.
Ratings happened, and that was like, why did you make The Acolyte fail? They blamed us for it. It's like, you went after an audience that didn't exist. You ignored who the Star Wars fans were in this particular case. You completely disregarded them. You did something that no one asked you to do, no one wanted you to do. You weren't honoring the canon that had been established. You tinkled all over it. And then you got mad at us about it and said it was our fault. It's not our fault that you don't know who your audience is and you don't give us the content that we want. I don't think they're smart enough to go destroy stuff deliberately.
Can I respectfully go
go
ahead.
Yeah,
Oh,
good.
I would
No.
just wanted to raise the point that there is some not small degree of skin suiting going on just out of greed and attention. And I want to bring up The Witcher as a point for this, is that it's really hard to get anybody to back up a IP that doesn't have fans, that doesn't have anything else to do with it, to get a TV show or a movie or something like that. So people will use IPs as a skin suit for their own work because that's what gets funded. So that's how you get things like The Witcher, where they've got a bunch of great books and then a bunch of women come in and then rewrite it to be their fantasy story
Yes.
that doesn't match with The Witcher. But people will watch it because it says The Witcher, and they'll get money because it says The Witcher. So some of it is ideological, but some of it is just that they want to get their stuff out there and they can be a parasite on something else to make it happen.
I
I-
actually like what you just said.
I think there is an audience that they're aware of. And they're going to get that audience, or let me speak in terms of their plans right now. Their audience is the one that is going to be created after we tear down what exists. It is the insidious and long range. You gotta give it to them. There are aspects of leftism that are so patient. They work their way into the school system. They work their way into every big system, knowing that eventually they're going to create the people they want. If you come in and burn down this wonderful show, and you have nothing but the terrible stuff we feed you, eventually you'll start eating what we have to feed you. That is the long range plan, and it is perfectly cognizant of the fact that today's older generation isn't going to like it, and they're going to rail and they're going to kick and whatever, but they're going to eventually go away, and the people who will have only experience this will supplant them, and then that is yet another industry that we completely control. Take a look at the education system now, and you are looking at the entertainment system of tomorrow. One other thing is, my hat's off to Peter Dinklage, the most powerful man in the world. One guy says no dwarfs, and everyone caves to him. And now, and if you are unfortunately of a height challenge situation now, you need his permission to get any work in Hollywood, and he did it with a single sentence. I mean, my God, the power. Anyway, that's what I got.
Okay, so let's try the positive, flip it around for a second and start with Morgan. What's the last thing you saw that wasn't woke crap that you liked?
That's really hard because I've actually been watching older media again recently because I can't find a lot of new stuff. So this might be controversial, and I can't actually say that I liked it, like I should have liked it, but I didn't, is the Fallout series. Got a lot of flack on social media for a particular scene in it that makes way more sense in the show, and it was nowhere near as bad as I expected it to be. And I actually think that they went pretty close to like the tone of Fallout, and of the very new stuff, that's the best thing I've watched, and that's not a great endorsement because it's not It's not that good.
Right?
I honestly, Deadpool Wolverine's been fantastic.
Okay.
Honestly, it was a great movie. It did exactly what you wanted. It delivered for the fans. It knew who its audience was. And they were unabashed about it. They actually joked about the woke in the movie,
Yes.
which was hilarious. And it's a huge financial success. And it stunned the movie industry. They don't know what to do. Because when they try it, they do She-Hulk. And it didn't work. And they don't know what to do. And I love the fact that it's created this agita out there in the leftist community of, damn, it was successful. And it's still successful. It's killing them because they don't know how to deal.
And you notice that the timing of it, how quickly they realized they couldn't attack Ryan Reynolds. So what did they do? They attacked his wife. They went after Blake Lively for some other stuff just because they wanted to get their pound of flesh.
Oh, yeah, they've got to do.
Bill?
Probably the 1/4 of an epic, the 3-hour movie Horizon from Kevin Costner.
1/4 of it.
Well, he planned for 4 of
the
them.
first quarter.
He'll be able to maybe, since the second one was made at the same time, he'll probably get that on. Probably won't be able to do the other 2 segments of it because he put his own money into it, lost his shirt. It bombed at the box office, and I think it was wonderful. I don't think there was a wasted scene in it. I think it was the best cast, non-preachious exploration of one small moment in time of the Old West that I've seen probably since his open range. But it is flawless, and I don't know that I've ever said that about anything except for, of course, Band of Brothers, which was the only thing that ever should have been made. And every other show that's ever been made is just a cheap attempt to cash in. But no, Horizon, I hope it can find an audience now that it's about to go streaming, because well, actually, I guess it is available on Max now.
It's on.
I received nothing from this, but it is just absolutely uncontaminated with all of the things we're talking about right now.
And I'm going to say Avengers Endgame, which, despite the 30 seconds or whatever it is of pandering to the female audience, with all the female superheroes getting together, the rest of it, they did something I want to ask you all about, because they listened to their audience. You know, they knew that the Captain America fans, of which I am one, wanted to see Captain America wielding Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
They listened to, like, what did the audience say about this character? What did they say about this character? All that crap went out the window after Avengers Endgame, and they're like, okay, yeah, we got to ruin the whole series now. But at least up to that point, they were on board. So when you're working on the things you're working on, how do you reach out to the audience? What do you do you communicate with people? Do you just read? How do you do it? What's your thought process? What's your creative process for that? Start with Bill, just work down line.
First of all, you're right about Captain America, and I think the best thing in that film is very little discussed, which is when he'd done enough. Like any good soldier, you do your part and then you go home. And he decided, that's it, I'm done. It's time for someone else to take it up. I don't know that I've ever known what audience I'm going for, and because of the I got to attend one half of the 2-day how to write that should have been called "Bill, You're Doing Everything Wrong" session that Rob. I found out that I was in fact doing everything wrong, and are continuing. I promise to do better in the future. But no, you know, for better or worse, I came up through comics at a time when there was a pretty big loyal comics reading audience out there. So I could design stories for, my stories are for whoever wants to read this story. But I didn't have to put more thought into it than that. That it's like these are the things I'm interested in. These are the things I want to talk about, and I'll hopefully find engaging and interesting ways to do that with the characters that are available. That's almost as much thought as I put into it. And now that I haven't left comics entirely, but now that I'm trying prose for the challenges that comics kind of don't give me anymore. Not in the sense that, of course, it's always a challenge to do an engaging story. But you know, the mechanics of producing a comic book are, I've been doing it for 40 years. There's no challenges there. There's no, can I do this? But I'm doing it in prose now, and I'm finding that I am, in fact, doing it wrong. And I think the almost a dozen people that buy each of my prose books. The nice thing about having a readership that small is the comics business has been pretty good to me, so I can in fact afford to fly to each and every person's house that have bought one of my books and apologize, which will come along. But yeah, I can't answer that question because, you know, next year I will give you an answer.
I'll call you
That's
on
it.
that.
All right.
Blaine?
All right, I'm going to tell a story here, and it's quasi self-promotional, and I'm not even going to apologize for that. So I interviewed Mike Barron. If you guys have never heard of Mike Barron, he's a comic book writer, renowned for his work on The Punisher in the 1990s, which he did for many years. Yeah,
really?
It's well worth it. Mike is a trip.
I'll give him a call. He's worth it.
Yeah, he and I are good friends.
Good luck getting an opinion from him, but
Oh, I can do that. So Mike and I were talking after I interviewed him, and I said, yeah, I'd really like an opportunity to do something with you. And he goes, yeah, I got hit by the cancel pigs too. And, you know, we bonded around that. And he said, you know, let's, what do you want to do? And I said, well, you did some great work with the Punisher. I said, why don't we do a series where we do the Punisher killing the woke? And he said, I'm in. So we had that discussion because he was like, everybody is sick and tired of this woke bullshit. And he said, when you talk to people, they're like, if somebody pulled that crap with me, I'd beat the crap out of them. But they're on the internet, so I can't find them. Right. And he said, so what if we come up with a story and a character in a series that's what we do? And I was like, this is great. So I called Wargate, and I got Jason on the phone, and he goes, I said, I'd like to make a pitch. And he goes, go ahead. I said, The Punisher kills the woke, and I'm doing it with Mike Barron. He said, contract's on the way.
excellent.
So we do think about our audiences, and yeah, I know that the woke are not going to want to buy this book, but their angst and frustration with me on this, they're going to buy it so that they can bitch about it. And I don't care. So we do think about our audiences. I do, at least. I go, I know who my audience is. It's people like you guys here in the crowd who are going to go, that's going to be fun. Yeah, I hope he comes up with interesting ways to do it. And it is. It's just going to be, and we're already working on book 2. So it's moving forward. And
In what format?
oh no, we're doing actual novels.
Novels. Okay.
We're trying. What we really wanted to do too is re-engage with that whole men's adventure genre, the old Mac Bolan books, the stuff from the 1970s, which by the way sold millions. And so we really spent a lot of time going back and reading some of those old Executioner series and things along those lines to figure out where is that audience now. Well, they're older, but they're still wanting that stuff. So I spent a lot of time doing that. So I know for myself, that's a big deal. So,
So when does it come out? Because if you're going to do it, this is not quasi self-promotional, but we're okay with it.
I don't have a date yet. We're doing the audio book. That's why I stepped out this morning to answer some questions for it. So it's coming. It's fun. It's goofy, weird. Yes, it's insanely violent. One guy in here's actually read it. Eric here in the back. He got to do a pre-read on it. So it's just fun. So, but I think we do it whether we do it subconsciously or not. You have to think about who's going to read this book and am I going to hit what they're looking for.
Very cool.
It's called Tenure.
In my early days of writing, I did like a running short story collection with the same characters in it, and I still have the whole plan for it. And it's the School of Spells and War, and the main characters in it are a wizard that's a woman, and then the barbarian warrior that's a man. And they're going on like adventures. It's supposed to be sword and sorcery. And initially, like, I was writing it for fun, and then I just decided, like, well, it's just so cliche that these two characters should end up together. So I'm going to do the exact opposite of that, because I like to do what's different. It's not even necessarily a deconstruction thing. And then, I'm on Twitter a lot, and I started hearing from people who were reading that series, and this is a while ago, about how much they love these two characters and, like, the will they or won't they, and I realized pretty fast that if I didn't do that, people are going to be really angry with me. And then I had to admit that it's actually that trope is there for a reason, and it was better for them to end up together. That deconstruction type stuff is not always the best way to do it. And like, this is before we ran Silver Empire, before we did the whole superversive thing. So that was almost like my first step into coming back into the superversive and keeping to tropes and not trying to deconstruct things. And people's opinions on the romance between these two characters started that. So I wouldn't say that I would listen to everything that someone would, like a fan would tell me that they wanted, but I definitely think it's worth listening when they're saying something that is worthwhile.
No, that's very, very cool. It actually takes me to a place that I think is a good place to go. And I'll start with you. When you're writing, everything the left does now must have mandatory messaging. We're going to indoctrinate you on this issue or this issue, usually about 17 of them per show or book. Do you think about, hey, this is the message I want to include, or is it simply you have foundational beliefs that are better than theirs because they are, and that's just part of everything you do?
I don't ever go out to lecture people when I write. Besides the idea that I tend to be subversive or white pill, like I want to make sure that the end of the story is not only worthwhile, but ends on a note where the characters have accomplished something and it's not like nihilist. I think that's really the only thing I go for. And any of the characters or anything that end up speaking from a point of view or something, sometimes it's me, but usually I'm just letting the character speak, because I don't like the Damsel movie. I don't think it's fun to read a book where someone is not letting me form my own opinions about the plot or the characters. So I don't want to do that to people when I'm writing for them.
Okay.
The only place I ever push any sort of narrative is my Blue Dawn series, which is about Second American Civil War. I'm unabashed about that. It's like, but it's mostly about told through the character's perspectives. So I'm not doing a forced narrative. I'm doing stories set in a place that explains that universe and explains why that's wrong or why things need to change. The rest of my series, I don't have narratives that I weave in. I have themes that I look for, that I try to drive to, but not, I try not to push that in other series. Now I have one series where I've allowed myself some of that, but the rest of my series are just there for entertainment purposes. You have great characters who are in unique circumstances, and people want to see what happens next. And I'm there to entertain. And I think a lot of these folks have forgotten in Hollywood and in New York, I would say the New York formal writers, tour books and stuff, that they're in the business to actually entertain an audience. Audiences don't necessarily want to hear what my politics are. Those who do, they go to the Blue Dawn series and they get it. The rest of them, they just want to be told really good stories. And, if you look at I walked around the table and saw these books, there's nobody pushing any narrative here. They're just great stories. They're fun. And we are our side of this fence, the conservative side, we're all about trying to have a good time, have good values, but for the most part, entertain. They're out there going, oh, no, you have to be entertained my way.
There's an older writer whose name I failed to write down because I didn't know who he was, and he surprised me by saying something very wise. So I remember what he said, but I apologize to him or his ghost by now. Anyway, he said in an interview that the purpose of art, and in his case he was talking about writing, but any art, is not to tell your audience what to do, but to show your audience who they are. And that always stuck with me, and I thought, okay, that is a good lesson. Don't preach, don't try and control, don't try and direct, and as far as educate, maybe a little goes a long way, unless you're Frederick Forsyth, in which case every one of his terrific novels are an absolute template on how to do whatever it is he's writing about, and then there's a little action at the end to justify it. I mean, if you want to form a mercenary company, you can find out how to do it in Dogs of War. If you want to be a political assassin, you can find how to do that in the Day of the Jack. I mean, you really do learn from this guy, and then you get a nice story. But I think he's the exception that proves the rule. So, yeah, not preach at an audience, not try and train them. That said, there are things I like writing about, and, to a certain extent, I hold to my books are for whoever wants to read my books. Now, yes, granted, if you read all the novels that are not doing so well right now, pardon me, you will become a better person. But that's just, a byproduct of just how great the story is. But I sort of forget the question. But it is like, yeah, you can't write to make people better people. That's my point. You can't write to improve the people that are reading you. Write to entertain them, and maybe write to give them a few thoughts, and that's it. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So it's interesting. I think all three of you during this conversation have mentioned older material that you read. And I think it's one of the differences. The left doesn't like the older material. And you all seem to, I mean, you look at Hollywood. New Hollywood doesn't like old Hollywood. new science fiction books don't like old science fiction books. So what's one old time creator of any sort of media that you really like, that you would recommend?
There's so many. Zelazny's probably my spirit guide at the moment, but old Hollywood is not that old. In my lifetime, it was Western movies and cop shows where the villain always got it. As a matter of fact, the TV practices and standards of my age were that you can't have the villain get away with it, and of course that's changed. But so much of this woke crap is in response to this, that we were a very conservative entertainment industry in books and in film and what have you, right up until recent. And then this new wave of wokeism and such has taken over swiftly. But I think it's like the candle burning at both ends. It's burning too hot right now. It's going to die quickly. It is a leaf on the wind that's going to settle very soon. And then the forces of nature are going to reimpose themselves, which is that conservatism is the natural thing, and this other nonsense is just nonsense they try out every once in a while. And they're failing so quickly at it. We have not had a generation of this crap before. It's already, we have to fix Cinderella right now because someone said one thing. Yes, we hate everyone and all this, but we tried too much too soon, and it's already collapsing. So, yeah. But to answer your question, that was the last thing, I guess.
Yeah. Blaine?
I stumbled across the Rubbermaid container of books from my childhood, which was like Christmas. And I've rediscovered Jack Chalker all over again. The Twilight of the Well of Souls, the whole Well of Souls series. Jack Chalker was just, when I was a kid, Jack Chalker couldn't write bad. He did some wonderful spoofs of the genre of fantasy. He did a series that was just wonderful on that. And I've been rediscovering those books, those yellowed pages and warped covers from my youth. And I'm really enjoying going back.
I'm
please,
sorry.
go,
The
Bill.
first of that series was so profound. The Midnight at the Well
Yeah.
of Souls. It broke my heart. The ending, which I will not give away. But yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
And his failures were interesting failures too. There's always cleverness in it.
Yeah, that's an interesting line about the book breaking your heart. And I think my husband and I were discussing this recently, is that I feel like the biggest problem with media right now is that I can't connect with it. Like, it doesn't move me. And we could probably go on for another hour about why that is the case, but that's what's happening. I can't get into the shows. I don't find myself wanting to watch the next episode. I don't care about the characters. The storyline doesn't move me. And I think that's a lot of when they start kind of losing their power, is when you can't make people care about the stories. It doesn't matter. As for something older, not all of her books are on KU, but I think a new publisher acquired Robin McKinley, and so a lot of her books are now on KU. And she's one of the early fantasy writers I read as a middle schooler. And I've been rereading her books and really enjoying it. She does like spin on the fairy tales, and then her big one was The Hero and the Crown and the Blue Sword, which was probably in your middle school library, and you saw it and you didn't know it. I like her in particular because she writes about women, and that makes me sound like a feminist, but all the women in books now are written terribly. They're not women. They're annoying, they're awful, and that is not the case with Robin McKinley. So if you want to read books with deep and interesting and female woman characters in them, I would recommend Robin McKinley.
And although it's, I think what we consider it to be YA these days, my vote will be John Christopher, for anybody who remembers him. Really pivotal in wrote dystopia before dystopia was really a thing. And God bless him. It's a dorky young person named Dan Gainor really liked his books. So you made a point, Morgan, I think it's really good that you don't connect with the stuff right now. I'm sick of anti-heroes. I'm sick of hating every single person I see in an episode of a show. It's like, who am I supposed to root for? I don't care. So do you do any of you, I'll start with you, do any of you see a show come out and go, oh, that's awful. I can do that better. And you use their ideas against them?
So I write superhero books, and it sounds bad, but you could say that my first superhero book, it's called Heroes Fall, is like The Boys, but not horrible. But and I don't mean horrible as in quality. I just mean not horrible as in just horrible people and horrible things happening, and ultimately being about being a hero and being a moral person instead of whatever The Boys is about. But it was a reaction to the deconstruction of superhero stories, and in particular to Watchmen, which I hate. And that's another way I've described it, is Watchmen, but not awful. And
no Richard Nixon, I assume.
Yeah, no Richard Nixon. But I see that all the time, and it's particularly frustrating because has been a big push, and you can argue about whether it should have happened or not, to get more women into fantasy and science fiction and games and all of that. And then they keep giving these slots to women who don't like fantasy, who don't like video games, who don't like science fiction, and don't care about the genres. And so, it's frustrating to be someone that has been into that for my whole life, even when it wasn't cool, and then they're still, picking the cool kids to do it, I guess. So I look at a lot of stuff, I'm like, yeah, I could definitely do that better. But I don't need more book ideas either. I've got enough.
What was your superhero book?
It's called Heroes Fall.
Okay. All right, so all about promoting here. So that's
Well, I don't know the name of it. It's gonna sound terrible. It's a Bryan Cranston series. It just came out on Netflix. Where, yeah, what's it called? The Judge, or Your Honor, or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
My wife and I watched 4 episodes of it, and we couldn't watch anymore. And so we actually sat down, and I was like, let's dissect this. Because I said, as a writer, I want to understand why we hated this. And she's like, there's not a single character here with any redeeming characteristics. None. They're all horrible people. They're all doing horrible things. Every single character. And she's like, everybody told me this was really good, but I'm watching it and I don't care about any of these characters. There's no redemption arc in play or anything else. There's no way these guys are going to come out, being good characters at the end. And we couldn't watch it all the way through. And I said, you're right. They could have changed this by just changing 1 or 2 of the characters to be decent people in unusual circumstances. But they didn't do that. And that was the one where I remember I would love the chance to actually rewrite it and make it good. Did anybody see that? You did?
I was about to.
Yeah. Good analysis.
Okay, a couple of things. From your last -1 comment, I think he hit on something, which is the left controllers of media right now do not understand that you cannot scold anyone into a profound moment, which is what, as writers, storytellers, you're kind of looking for. Even if you can't achieve it, I mean, we're all kind of swinging for the rafters every time, right? We're hoping for it. The Elmore Leonard. Okay, I've got many things that I say I could do better and I could fix this. I'm, when there's 100 of me, when we clone me as we should, I'm going to fix Star Trek. I'm going to fix Star Wars. I'm going to, et cetera, et cetera. But Elmore Leonard went a different tack with that, which is, the Howard Hawks thing that he saw High Noon and said, that's all wrong and I'm going to fix it. And he did Rio Lobo. And he had a good argument. Elmore Leonard saw Stagecoach and said, this is a profoundly wonderful movie. I can do better. And he wrote Ombre. And he did. I think many of the problems, small though they were with Stagecoach, were just done so much better. And that's the kind of swagger and arrogance that I want. I want to take something good and say I can fix that, rather than just the crap. Oh, and there's so much crap. That's like punching down. It's the easy win. I want to do the hard one, the something that is terrific, except maybe they should have done this instead. Someone just came out. It's online now. I read it on my phone this morning. A huge essay on why Game of Thrones, the novels, will never be finished. And the upshot, spoiler, go read it. He says it much better than me. But the spoilers is I can tell by what he's done so far and what he wishes he could be. He wanted to be Tolkien when he grew up. Everyone knows this. That the books ache for a happy ending. And George Martin, being politically and culturally who he is incapable of delivering the happy ending. So it's fighting it. He's like, no, I cannot do this. The problem with heroic fiction is so few writers can conceive of anyone more heroic than themselves, and they know that basically they are a pile of snakes inside. So my only saving grace is, yes, I'm a wretched bag of all that stuff that I shouldn't pronounce right now, but probably everyone else is worse. So that's why, and his point is, that's why he will not be able to bring this book in, because it wants to be a better book than he's capable of writing. And there's something to that. There's something of a sense of we don't really own our stories. We're stewards of them, and we have an obligation to bring it to whatever it is it needs to be. And if we can't do it, hopefully the next guy to come up. There are Elmore Leonards out there that will say, pretty good, kid, I can do better, and will do. And I look forward to that.
And I would say not even just stewards of our stories, but maybe parents of our children, the characters would create. That when you create a character, you give life to that character. And that character exists kind of whether you want them to do what you want them to do or not. They really want to do what they want to do. So I know we're pushing time. Anybody have any quick questions? The back corner.
Yes, I love that. All belly, no chest. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Oh, okay. The question was, I think it's pretty interesting. He talks about how C.S. Lewis wrote story about you wrote a short piece about how about men without chests, men who were not strong men, and that lack proper affection, to use his term. Yeah. So is that George R. Martin's problem?
Perhaps so. You know, success has its own. I mean, George Martin, everything he wrote was pretty technically wonderful and did okay. And now this thing just blew up and became super. Maybe he became overwhelmed by it. I can see that. I can see people being just not enough for the thing they created. It's Frankensteinian in the sense that, what you create is capable of destroying you unless you can manage it properly. But I don't, I can't look into his psyche.
Not sure he can either. Blaine?
I think the biggest problem he's facing is the TV series got ahead of the books, and we all know the end. And so he, it's kind of like we were talking about at lunch. It's like watching the prequels of the Star Wars. We all know Anakin Skywalker is going to become Darth Vader. And that's part of why the prequels just never had the gravitas that the original movies did, because we knew how this was going to end. And in Game of Thrones, we know how this is basically going to end. Now, he will have twists, turns, and some different things, but we know how it's going to end. And once you do that, how are you ever going to satisfy the reader?
Or you have to change it.
Yeah.
His biggest problem now is no matter what, maybe he writes a wonderful ending. I don't think it'll ever be finished myself, but what if he does? He is still only the guy who's adapting the TV show.
Yes.
What chronology is an absolute master. The ending is what we saw.
Yeah.
If he writes a different one, or if he writes substantially the same one but explains it better or whatever, it doesn't matter. He did not finish the story. He never will. He, at best, is going to adapt the TV show. And that's going to kill him. She wants to.
Okay.
Oh, many do.
I think anyone who's seen Game of Thrones wants him to change the ending.
Most people expect him to.
I'd like him to refilm the end.
Yeah, you can pretty much redo that whole battle scene too. Like, okay, yeah. By the way, we can send all your cavalry off against.
Oh, let's do a whole thing about the bad tactics in that damn movie, that show. They're so bad. I try not to scream at the TV. I really, really do.
We could
And
when Rob does BaseCon South, we could do one whole day of bad military sci-fi and TV and movies.
oh God, make it so. Now that's the panel.
Yeah.
It's not a panel. That's a whole day.
Yeah, well, next year it's going to be big enough to where there's going to be 2 tracks of programming anyway, right? Yeah.
I think the funniest thing is there were all these people that named their daughter Khaleesi.
Oh,
In like the second season and third season, they were like, "We're gonna name my daughter Khaleesi." Yeah, she's a crazy psycho bitch. Yeah.
my Schadenfreude is vast. I love that.
I just thought that was my absolute. There's kids that are like, just call me Cal.
Morgan, any thought?
Yeah.
So, I have read a lot of George R. R. Martin's work outside of the Song of Ice and Fire series, and I was really into that for a while when it was just the first 3 books out. And Martin is incapable, Bill mentioned this, of writing a happy ending. The only book that has a happy ending, you can tell that his publisher forced him to do it. It's just not something that Armageddon Rag.
Oh, okay. All right.
and it's just not something he's capable of doing. And yet he set his book in this universe where there's a long winter that you have to survive, followed by a long summer, like summer that lasts for years. And I think that's really incongruent, because that that implies, you know, a happy ending. And even more than not having a happy ending is most of his books kind of have like a meh ending. Like nobody ends up anywhere different than where they were spiritually, character-wise. You know, it's just kind of depressing, and there's no tragedy to it. Like there's nothing. And I think he's going to struggle to finish the series because of that.
Anyhow, I think this is we're already past time, so I think I will be obedient to Rob and call it here. But you all were really wonderful. This was
Thank
great.
Yep. You just set me as the moderator.
That's the one you're talking about?
So we'll take like a 5-minute break
Yes.
and then start back up
Yes,
again
it
with the
is.
AI panel.
Pretty impressive that